I want to quickly start this review by saying that I'll be showing various monsters within the video. I will aim to constrain the monsters shown to only early and mid game, but if you don't want to see what they look like, just listen to the audio. Monster Hunter World. Should you buy it? Welcome to a review series called Late Reviews, in which we play and review games sometime after their release date, to see if they're worth a buy in the current state that they're in. If this review helps you in any way, or you want to see more, make sure to leave a like or even subscribe to the channel if you're really feeling it. This review will be in the 21:9 aspect ratio to give it that cinematic feel, and also because it's the native resolution of my monitor and makes it far easier to record. Monster Hunter World was released in January 2018 on consoles and August later that year on PC. The game is developed by Capcom and is a third-person action role-playing game. This video will be covering purely the base game for Monster Hunter World. I'll cover the major DLC expansion of Iceborne if you guys want to see that in the future. This review will be split into various categories, starting as always with graphics. I was running the game on an RTX 2080 Super at 3440 by 1440, with the graphics settings majority set to between high and medium. Let's start with, of course, the most important aspect of the graphics in a game called Monster Hunter, and that is the monsters. The various monsters, beasts, and abominations alike throughout the game are astounding. Every single one of them. From their incredibly unique appearance and visual look, to their standout and extremely fluent animations. The first time you encounter any monster, you'll almost certainly be blown away and terrified at the same time by how amazing and intimidating they look. Bringing it back to the animations, they flow so seamlessly between animations of different attacks and movements, and often vary the way in which each attack or movement is performed, meaning you'll never fully know a creature's pattern or what it's going to do next, no matter how many times you fight it. The human NPCs and characters within the game also look pretty great, all things considered. Despite looking relatively realistic, I think they also have a slight stylized look to them, which I think lends itself excellently to the game. The world and different environments throughout Monster Hunter World also look great, with every area being completely different and varied from the last, and each having its own unique feel and setting. Very occasionally, especially in the first area, the game appeared overly bright or overexposed in one or two areas, but I haven't experienced it at any other time. Even the food within the game looks absolutely phenomenal. The monsters are of course the star of the show, but everything else helps to hold the standard high when it comes to graphics, and I haven't noticed anything that looks bad or unfinished. Next up, we move on to atmosphere and immersion. To start with, you may not think an almost boss fighting focused game would have too much immersion, but somehow they pulled it off. To start off, the monsters don't have anything close to a health bar. The main indication of its health is that you'll notice it starts to look more injured or damaged, or it'll start to limp and run away or move to a different location. There is a small coloured icon or skull icon on the map that can give you a slight indication when it's low on health, but I don't usually look at that anyway. The next aspect is that when trying to find a monster, you won't just have a map marker leading you directly to it, but will instead be required to track it down using footsteps and other markings that it leaves behind. One thing I learnt the hard way is that random monsters are roaming the map, even if it's not the one you're hunting, and can either attack you or engage in a fight with creatures around it, or the creature you're hunting yourself. This can result in some pretty incredible battles. The addition of health bars for yourself, damage numbers, and other such things draw away from immersion a little, as well as a large variety of menus for quests, crafting, and inventory, but these are pretty necessary aspects of the game, and don't often get in the way when you're actually on a hunt, which is the main focus of the game. The different locations are also very atmospheric and all feel very different, making traversing them feel tense and keeping you constantly on edge. Next up, we have another factor that can strongly contribute to the atmosphere of the game, but it's also very important on its own, which is music, sounds, and voice. Starting of course with music. Ugh, the music within this game will fill you with emotion, fire, and intensity all at once. From the swelling tracks that build up the wonder of the world around you and the new world, and then transition into faster paced and intense battle music, helping to set the ultimate scene as you take down one of the many large behemoths for the first time in one of the most exciting and heart-racing battles of your life. The music may at times take a back seat in your mind whilst playing, but if you give it a proper listen and let it blend in with your monster slaying, it will enhance your experience in every way. Then we move on to sounds. As any game like this should, each creature and monster has its own unique and terrifying growl, cry, and roar, allowing you to identify the creature almost based purely off the sound it makes. The sound of your weapon landing a blow sounds impactful and makes every attack feel powerful and important. The game is filled with ambient sounds, giving life to each environment, from birds chirping in the ancient forest to the ominous sound of wind whistling through the rotten vale, as well as unique footstep sounds for each surface you walk on. The sound design in this game does everything in its power to help improve the feel of the game. Lastly, we have voice.
But she could provide the Commission with valuable data. Hunter, I couldn't trouble you for a sample, could I?
There's no point. We exhausted our supplies during the last operation. Even if we did track it down, there's no way we'll be able to pull off anything of that scale.
Then what should we do, Commander?
We'll have to send a ship to the guild.
What?
Hey, partner!
Oh,
The voice acting in this game does the job. It gives characters some personality and uniqueness, but a lot of the dialogue in-game is not voiced, and instead will result in you having to read text while the character you're speaking to says a single word or makes a noise. The voice acting that is in the game, such as in cutscenes, does sound good and relatively believable, but it's in no way the star of the show. Now we move on to what is the largest category of these reviews, and that is gameplay. We're going to start off with aspects of the game that I consider good or effective within Monster Hunter World. First off is of course something I mentioned previously, but it's the amazing variety of monsters all throughout the game that make you want to keep playing and experiencing everything this game has to offer. They are both what drew me towards the game initially and what has kept me playing for hours on end. Hunting monsters allows you to craft armor from the parts you get when either killing or capturing the monster. I went into the game with low expectations of the armor system, but was incredibly surprised of how amazing and unique every single armor looks. Some which give you an almost sophisticated look, while others are gigantic and over-the-top battle armor. All of the armors also come with buffs and specific abilities that will aid you in certain areas or with a certain playstyle. They also all have their own specific elemental resistances and weaknesses, resulting in favourable and unfavourable matchups against certain enemies. The game provides you with 14 different weapon types to choose from, ranging from a bow and arrow, dual swords, and all the way up to a gigantic hammer. All of these weapons play and feel completely different, providing a different playstyle for all different kinds of players, ranging from slow and timed attacks to a flurry of blows. All the weapons also have a bunch of different crafting options and upgrades available. Don't worry either, just because you chose a specific item at the start of the game doesn't mean you're stuck with it. You can change your weapon and playstyle at any time. You are also given a companion within this game, who is in essence a cat that will help you in battle by both attacking or helping to heal you. You can craft and equip armor and weapons to your buddy as well, which also look awesome. Both your own character and your palico are created to look exactly how you want them to from the start of the game, with a relatively in-depth character customization. During this character creation, you'll be able to choose between a few different starting armor sets. You'll receive them all in your storage box anyway, so don't worry too much about choosing the right one. The game recommended the Guardian armor to me, so I chose it, but after playing the first few hours with it, I came to the realization that it was almost maxed out armor and was incredibly OP compared to anything else I could craft or buy at the time. From what I can gather, it's intended to allow you to blast through the base game so you can get into the DLC quickly. So if you're a new player and want the full experience of Monster Hunter World, I recommend avoiding this armor because it'll take away from a lot of the challenge within the game. I was pleasantly surprised when trying to kill a powerful monster towards the beginning of the game, that often dying won't make you fail the mission straight away, as you're often allowed to faint a handful of times before failing, allowing for a bit of error and not being penalised too heavily for it, besides a reduction in quest rewards, allowing you to get right back out there and continue the fight with that dangerous monster. Quests or hunts can go differently as well. At one point in one of the earlier missions, myself and a monster fell into a pit which appeared to be scripted and were followed by another much more terrifying creature. I had to replay this mission due to not saving, and on the second time, this second monster never even appeared and we didn't fall into the pit, leaving me amazed that it was a chance encounter and not guaranteed to happen to everyone. You have to prepare before every hunt by making sure that you have the right armor and weapon for the monster you're looking for, bringing the right resources and buff items to help you, and ensuring you have a fresh cooked meal before each fight to buff your stats. You will also need to keep an eye on the sharpness of your blade or weapon after each encounter to ensure it's doing maximal damage. The game also allows you to join in co-op with friends or random people online, helping provide that aid for a difficult monster or just a bit of company during a long hunt. Now we'll move on to a few aspects of the game that I don't feel particularly strong about in either direction. First off is that despite initial appearances, the game is not open world. You have a main base of operations where you will do most of your crafting, inventory management, talking to NPCs and receiving quests and such, and then you'll embark on hunts through the use of menus to one of the many destinations. Most hunts have a time limit, which can be a little annoying if you discover an awesome but difficult and time-consuming monster that you decide to take on before completing your quest objective. The game can also be pretty difficult, which for me just added to the whole experience, making me feel like I had to work for each kill and leaving me with an overwhelming feeling of satisfaction the first time I killed a monster. Oftentimes, if you make one wrong move, a monster can kill you pretty much instantly. But for others, this difficulty may be a turn-off if you're into more casual or story-driven games. There is a time investment involved with this game. It's not the type where you can pop in and back out for 5 to 10 minutes at a time, as each hunt can go on for an extended period of time, especially if you haven't battled the creature before, and you cannot save the game during an expedition. The game includes a stamina meter, which you'll have to watch so that you don't get caught without the ability to dodge or get away from a monster. And then for some of the factors that I don't love. Inventory management can be a bit of a pain to deal with, as you have to remember to empty the non-important items into your chest in between hunts, or you won't be able to pick up new items in the future. Killing the same monster over and over again for either expeditions or to build a certain set of armor can occasionally become a bit monotonous once you learn how they function, or your armor is strong enough that their hits don't really bother you. But it is purely down to personal preference if you want to face the same monster over and over. Other than these small aspects, the game can take a little bit of time to really get going, which made me struggle to get into it when I bought it a year or two ago. But I'm really glad I went back to it recently, because the slow start doesn't last long at all, and then it's all action from that point forward. As usual, I'm sure there's hundreds of things I haven't covered in the gameplay section, but I'm aiming to not make this review an hour long if possible. But now we're going to move on to content. How long is the game, and does it provide you with enough to be worth playing years after it was released? As always, we'll be using the website How Long to Beat in order to determine the length of the game. If you focus purely on the main story, and kind of power through, then the game should take you around 47 to 48 hours, which is already an insane amount. But if you play the game how it's meant to be played, doing both main quests and extra side missions, and your crafting, then it should give you approximately 100 hours of monster hunting goodness. But if your motto is go hard or go home, and you want the full completionist experience, the game should last you somewhere around 376 hours. On top of that, the game has an enormous DLC available, which expands the game even further. As you can tell, the game will absolutely satisfy your desire for a long game you can sink your teeth in, but might be overwhelming for the casual gamer. Now of course, an especially important aspect of a game that relies on both precision and timed movements, and that is performance. As mentioned before, I was personally running the game between mid and high settings on an RTX 2080 Super at 3440 by 1440, and practically all the time the game stayed around 70 to 80 FPS. Quite often in the distance or a little bit further away from the camera, movement from other creatures and such could appear framey or weird looking, but never really occurred when the action was happening where you were up close and personal in a battle. I'm going to provide a warning here. If you suffer from epilepsy or flashing lights affect you in any way, please skip forward to the time on the screen now. I did have an issue during my first few hours of the game where I experienced a green flickering that would oftentimes take up half or more of the screen, hurting my eyes and making the game almost impossible to play. It seemed to be fixed by turning on DirectX 12 within the game settings. Story is up next, and don't worry, I won't mention anything spoiler related, and anything I do mention will be from the beginning of the game. You're sent to the New World to hunt and slay monsters to help the colony progress and colonize the New World. You also need to help get to the bottom of the phenomenon in which the Elder Dragons cross the sea to the New World once every decade. Relatively generic stuff altogether. This game won't get you hooked with its story, but it also knows this and won't force you into hours and hours of cutscenes and story-driven content before getting into the action. The side quests are basically all just focused on slaying or capturing certain monsters. And finally, we have the overall experience and verdict. I was expecting to play this game and have a decent time, but for it to not really stand out to me much at all. Instead, what I discovered is one of the most enjoyable and engaging games I've played in a long time, which has the potential to go down as one of the top on my list. Amazing creatures and environments are two things that get me, and this game has both. Combine that with impactful and exhilarating combat, with rewards that match the challenge, and you've got your hooks into me. The story is lackluster, and the voice acting could use some improvement, but these only very barely take away from everything else this game has going for it. The base game can be purchased on Steam for $44.95 Australian dollars or $30 US, but will often go on sale for around 34% off, bringing it down to $29.66 Australian dollars or $19.79 US. Now, despite this being such a fun and exciting game for me, I still don't think it's necessarily for everyone. I know plenty of people who have played this game and did not enjoy it at all, or even straight up hated it. But if everything I've said in this review appeals to you, then I would highly recommend this game to you, either at full price or on sale, as it's fully worth it either way. And as mentioned before, if there's enough interest, I will absolutely review the Iceborne DLC as well, so just let me know if that's something you're interested in. Anyway guys, that was my late review for Monster Hunter World. If you guys enjoyed this video at all, or it helped you in any way, maybe leave a little baby like, or even subscribe for more late reviews and reviews in general. And catch you later.